Welcome to another edition of Journey of Hope. Stories of real people who've encountered difficulties and challenges along the way. Our special guests today are Dwayne and Janet Toppenberg, all the way from Detroit, Michigan. We're glad to have you here. We've got people from around the world that are watching this program and want to learn a little bit about you. Dwayne, where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your background.
I was born right here in Loma Linda.
Now, come on.
I was born up on the hill in the old hospital up on the hill.
Up in the old
Don't
hospital.
remember it.
But that's where you got your start.
My grandfather worked here as a hydrotherapist. And
that's your grandfather?
My grandfather. And my father and his brothers and sisters grew up right here. My father took medicine right here and, of course, went into the Army.
So did he go in as a physician, or did he finish school then?
Went in as a physician.
And then after he got out of the Army, did he continue practicing?
Yes. He came back, and as soon as he got out, then we moved away from Loma Linda, and I was only 2 years old.
Where did you move?
Boston.
You moved to Boston. Okay. So were you raised out back in New England then?
I'm a New Englander through and through. I love New England. That's where I'm from.
And where did you go to school? Where did you go to high school?
I went grades 1 through 9 in Boston.
Okay.
Then my father, being a physician, moved back out to Napa Valley and practiced up in the St. Helena Hospital.
Okay.
And that's where I went, finished high school and college,
and
met my wife up there.
Oh, great things happened. Where'd you go to school then?
Pacific Union College.
Pacific Union College. That's where I went to college. Great school. In fact, I think you were there maybe in part of the time that I was there and finished up later. Mm-hmm. So you met your wife at PUC. Did you graduate from academy there, or you went to high school?
I graduated from the academy there and then went right on to college. And I took 5 years. Both of us took 5 years of college.
And what did you major in?
I took a physics major for the first 3 years, and then I continued on with a theology major.
So you graduated in theology and then went into the ministry.
Yes.
All right. So, Janet, tell us a little bit about where you're from.
Well, I was born in East Ely, Nevada, and I did almost all of my education in the state of California at Sacramento.
In Sacramento?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Second grade all the way through to the 12th grade at Sacramento Adventist Academy.
Okay, and then you ended up going to PUC?
Yes, I went to PUC for 5 years.
All right.
And I took a religion major, 2 music minors, and a 2-year nursing course.
All right, so you graduated nursing and had a double or almost a triple major then.
Almost.
All right. What a great combination. So then you met her there, and did you get married during college, after college?
1 week after graduation, we got married.
Oh, you waited for a week after graduation. All right. So where did you go then? Did you have a call into the ministry?
Yes. But we went back to the seminary at Andrews University in Barron Spring, Michigan. 2.5 years there, and then we went back to New England. And my first church was the northernmost church in Maine.
Really?
Snow country.
Way up north. Okay, but you were from New England, so
yes.
You're well acquainted with the culture, because that's a separate culture back there. Was it a culture shock for you?
Well, the snow level was clear up to the gutters the first winter.
Was it really?
So we climbed up on the roof and slid down.
So that was your first place in the ministry. Well, I know when we went to the seminary, the winters that we had in Michigan were some of the worst winters we've ever had, particularly January and February, the storms coming off of Lake Michigan there. Mm-hmm. So some of the place you've been, I understand you were over in the mission field for a while, but you didn't go immediately there. You went up to New England as a pastor.
We were 7 years, I guess, in New England, and then we went to Zambia, Africa. And I taught high school Bible there for 6 years.
And where was that in Zambia?
Rusangu Secondary School, which is now Zambia Adventist University.
Okay, and you were the Bible teacher there?
Yes.
Or did you have a number of hats that you were wearing?
Oh, In mission service, you always have many hats. But I was the chairman of the Bible department. There were 3 of us teaching there in that department. And then periodically, I was also pastor of the church.
Okay.
But I tried over and over again to get a national to be the pastor. But they couldn't see having 3 pastors there and not one of them being the pastor, so they put it back on us again.
And what were you doing at this time, Janet?
I was doing homeschool for my children,
Okay.
and we grew our food. I was busy.
No, I can imagine you were. Well, I've been in Zambia a couple of years ago. I went over there, Dr. Hart, Dr. Persley, and Dr. Behrens. And if I remember correctly, we went up the Zambezi River to the Yucca Mission.
Yes.
And I never forget that experience. We were up there, and we left a little bit later than we wanted to. The people didn't show up, and finally we were going to this dugout canoe with a boat on the end, with a motor on the end of it, and the motor started sputtering and eventually stopped. And we're out in the middle of nowhere. It's on a Friday night. We should have been there long before. And, you know, the river's moving, and when your boat's not going forward, then you're drifting back. And we ended up, somebody had a phone that we could reach the United States. We called Loma Linda. It was a Friday afternoon here. Somebody still was in the office. They ended up calling the Yucca Mission from Loma Linda, and then somebody from the Yucca Mission came out and rescued us. So I remember Zambia quite well. I had some good experiences there.
One of the most significant experience to us while we were there, our son was bitten by a snake.
Really?
A poisonous snake. We had a rule that they don't go out into the cornfield because they harvest dried corn. The mice get that, the snakes get the mice.
Oh.
But accidentally they kicked the ball out there into the cornfield, and they weren't playing there, but they had to go and retrieve the ball. But before he got the ball, there was the snake right there, and he jumped over that snake, but it got him right here on that leg.
What kind of a snake was it?
We didn't know at the time.
Wow.
And so he went running home, which was only a block. But he went running home, and he said, "Mommy, Mommy, I've just been bitten by a snake. Am I going to die?"
The first thing he was concerned about.
That was his first thing. And fortunately, she had a snake bite kit in the refrigerator. So she went and took out the snake bite kit and took out the instructions. You don't read them until you need them. And they were all in Portuguese.
Well, there was about 3 languages.
But you look down, and then there was French, and there was something else. And way down at the bottom was English.
Okay.
And
so apparently he survived.
Well, that morning we had studied about Paul being bitten by a snake. So that's what I said.
That very morning?
That very morning. And I said to David, "Do you remember that story and what happened to Paul? He loved Jesus, didn't he? And did Paul die?" "No, Mommy." Well, that calmed him right down.
Right then and there. Amazing.
that leg swelled up from his here.
All the way
He
up.
couldn't get his clothes on and off. But by Wednesday, we hauled him to church on a wagon. Wednesday afternoon, he was out running around.
Amazing. Now, Janet, I know you had some kind of an injury a few years ago. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yes.
People watching on, because some of them have had the same kind of an injury.
Well, I was doing literature evangelism work, and I hadn't been doing very well, and my leader was a surfer, and we were living in Watsonville, California then, and so I like to watch people surf. I thought I might like to try it, but not a regular board. I'd just try a boogie board. And that afternoon, I had thought I was not really trusting God very well. So Dwayne and I went down to go surfing at Santa Cruz, and it was late in the afternoon, and we thought we would take one more wave. I was really tired. I shouldn't have taken one more, and I shouldn't have questioned whether God was with me or not. And I hit the wave wrong and put my face in the sand.
Had a face plant.
Ooh. When you hyperextend your neck, you can sever your spinal cord.
Right.
And I thought, oh no, Lord, all I can do is blink my eyes. I think I've broken my neck. Please help me. And just then a wave came and turned me over so I could breathe. And I went up on the shore, and Dwayne said, "Janet, get up." And then he saw I was bleeding from my mouth. I had bitten my lip. And I said, "I don't know if I can." And then there were 2 Persian men that came over and picked me up and carried me up to the car. Dwayne flagged down a policeman, and we went to the emergency room there at the Santa Cruz Hospital. It's a Catholic hospital. First thing they did was stretch me out straight and order an MRI. Well, then the doctor said, the neurologist, neurosurgeon, you've injured your neck before. I had 2 years before. He says,
So it's kind of re-injuring an old injury then.
yeah, he says, I think God must be trying to say something to you. And then I knew what it was. When God says, I'm with you always, he means what he says.
Exactly right.
And he had saved my life many times those 2 years. I could have...
The times you know about, there are other
Yes.
times you don't even know about.
Yes, that's
true of all of
right.
us, yeah. So how long ago was that?
That was in 2000.
2000?
Well, actually, the accident was in 1996. I had my surgery in 2000.
So what, when you had a surgery, what kind of surgery did you have?
I had a bilevel cervical fusion. Dr. Lloyd Days, oh, he's a wonderful man. And he also had been a literature evangelist.
Right. And for the listening audience, a literature evangelist are Christian young people that go around and sell Christian literature.
Yes, you don't have to be young. You can do it even
Young
when
or
you're
old.
old.
Yeah,
yes.
that's right.
And you're telling people about Jesus and getting the material in the home.
Right. So you had a fusion, okay?
Yes.
So did that solve the problem?
Well, I did it right here at Loma Linda.
You did it here at Loma Linda,
yes.
okay.
I had the surgery one day. I was discharged the next day. Went right out for my hike that very next day.
Wow. So are there any after effects from that? Do you still have some pain?
I have pain all the time because the C2-3, that's the cervical vertebra 2-3, the disc there and the disc between the 3 and 4 are still pressing on my spinal cord.
Wow.
Dr. Days was afraid he would cause me to be permanently injured, paralyzed.
Very delicate surgery.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, the first doctor told me I was very fortunate not to be dead or
Wow.
paralyzed.
God is with you. Still has plans for you.
Oh,
well,
yes.
so how are you relating to all this? All of a sudden your wife, she's going to have surgery, could be permanently paralyzed. How are you reacting to this?
She couldn't hold my hand. So much pain.
I couldn't wear clothes. I laid on the floor flat, and even to have a fan on me,
It was just
excruciating.
unbearable. Oh,
I don't know
wow.
how to explain it except like stinging nettles and hot boiling oil.
This had to be a
You wanna
terrible
help.
experience, yeah.
You want to help, and there's nothing you can do.
Kind of helpless, yeah.
Doing dishes became my hydrotherapy.
Well, so everything, you had the surgery, things are going along, and a few years ago, where was your last pastorate?
My last pastorate was Kentucky-Tennessee Conference. And I had PSA tests for 10 or 15 years.
Okay, and a PSA test is a simple blood test for men to help them determine, whether the prostate cancer could be involved. It's a marker. It's an indicator, okay? And you've been having these tests all along.
And I had records of them.
Now,
But nothing applied to me.
Were you retired at this point?
No.
Well, you've been having it all along. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you finally retired from Kentucky, where did you move to, or from Tennessee?
Then we moved from Kentucky, Tennessee, up to Detroit, where my son works as an engineer for Ford.
Okay, so there's a reason for moving to Detroit. A lot of people are leaving Detroit, but you moved to Detroit, but
Well,
you had family there.
We live outside of Detroit.
Sure.
And I just went in for my next annual physical and did another PSA test. And he says, your score is high. We need you to go in and see the urologist. Well, it was 7.5.
Okay, which is not all that high, but it's high for a man your age, okay?
But then I went back and looked. And it had been low, 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 low. But for a couple of years, it had gone from 2, 3, 4, 5, 7.
So it had been edging up then.
And I should have noticed it. But the new physician up in Detroit said, we need to get you to a urologist. And so we went in and they did some biopsies. And the doctor said, you've got cancer and you need to come into the office and we can talk about it. We can take care of it.
So that's the first you heard about it. Now, were you with him at this point, or
Yes.
you were there? And he said you got cancer, and
Well, that was on the telephone.
that was on the telephone. So he informed you over the phone and wants you to come in and kind of discuss the different options.
That's what he
Okay,
did.
so what happened next? You told me about a very unusual experience you had.
Went in, and he was very nice. He was an older doctor, but he was up to date. He was doing robotic surgeries.
All right, okay.
So he was an older doctor, but up to date, very cordial, very nice. And he said, and he explained the full, he took a good half hour to explain prostate and what is happening and the cancer. And he says, at your age, I was 71. He says, if you were older, we'd probably just let it go. If we were younger, we'd definitely take it out. You're right there in the middle. And
But he also told you if you did let it go, you might be dead in 1 to 3 years.
I asked him, I says, what happens if I do nothing? He said, well, in 1 year, it will be in your lymph nodes. In 2 years, it'll be in your bones.
Now, for our listening audience, I need to point out that generally prostate cancer is very slow growing. But Dwayne, you had a more aggressive form. In
Yes.
fact, you had a Gleason of
9.
from that's what I remember. So it's a more aggressive form. So what he's saying, you really need to do something. If you don't, it's going to be metastasis, and
Yeah.
you're going to have all kinds of complications.
Well,
So he explained some of the options for you.
yeah. But as soon as he said cancer, I knew where I was going. Because as a minister of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I had promoted Loma Linda University and their prostate cancer proton therapy. I had promoted it many times,
Over
but
the
it
years.
didn't apply to me.
No, it's somebody else going to have that
It's
kind of
somebody
problem.
else.
Yeah. Well, you told me about somebody that was telling you about if you ever had prostate cancer. What happened there?
Okay. Once I contacted Loma Linda, they sent me out material, and there was a book that I read from them. And in this book, it said,
Now, what was the book?
by Bob
Marcini.
Martin. Okay.
You can beat prostate cancer, and you don't need surgery to do it. So Bob Marcini was one of our patients here and wrote this book that's helped thousands of people. Anyway, so you read the book.
I read the book, and in the book it says, be sure and go out and talk to other people that have prostate cancer and see what they did and what kind of reaction they had. So my wife and I were taking a trip, and I stopped at a roadside rest area. I thought, well, I might as well start talking to people.
You've been diagnosed, so you're going to take it literally. As a minister, you can't help but share. Okay?
And so I saw a man come out of the restroom, and I walked up to him.
This is at a rest stop now.
Rest stop by the side.
Never
of
saw the guy before in your life.
Never saw him before.
All right?
Just cold.
And what kind of news are you going to share with him?
I walked up to him and I says, excuse me, do you have a minute? He says, sure. And then I said, I have just found out that I have prostate cancer. And I'm reading this book about prostate cancer, and it says go out and talk to people. And so I decided to talk to somebody. You're the first one I saw.
What in the world was his reaction?
I said, do you know anybody that has prostate cancer? He says, yeah, me.
Really?
That was his first thing. Yeah, me. And he says, first thing I want you to know is there is life after prostate cancer.
Wow, what good news. What a way to bring news to you. You're sharing with him, and he tells you that there's life after prostate cancer. Had he done something? Had he been resolving his problem?
He had had his prostate removed. And I said, how's everything going? He says, oh, it's fine. He says, I'm fine. But the longer I talked to him, the more I realized it wasn't just fine.
He was having a few complications.
He was having leakage. He was having some bowel problem. But he was learning to live around it.
Sure, he was learning to live. So out of the blue, you were impressed to talk to this guy, and he brought you the message, there is life after prostate cancer. Now, you'd already received the book. Were you lined up to come to Loma Linda? Were you able to come to Loma Linda right away?
Yes.
I was weighing what I read in the book and what he was saying about his results. And I didn't want his results. And the book said I could have a lot better results. So then I called out to Loma Linda, and I made an appointment, and I flew out here from Detroit, spent a week out here, almost a week out here, and I saw the doctor. They got me all set up for treatment. But because my Gleason score was 9...
Okay, and there's a Gleason of 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, 10 being the highest. But you're a Gleason 9, which is very high. What did they tell you?
They said, before you come out here, we want you on Lupron hormone therapy for 2 months.
All right. And for our listening audience, the hormone shot, did you get a shot or
Yes,
pills? Shot. The hormone shot actually begins to shrink and immediately curtails everything. It kind of brings everything to a dead end. It's not a long-term technique, but it does stop things right in its tracks. And they probably wanted you on that for a couple of months before you started your treatment. So,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So I went to my urologist and I got the shot. It's one every 4 months at that time. But then I counted out the time, because I knew there was 1 week of building your pod before your treatment, and I wanted that treatment just as soon as I could get it.
So you timed it down to the very end. You came out here as soon as you could get the pod built. You had the pod built. And for our listening audience, a pod is a immobilization device so that every patient has their own little pod, so that every time they have a treatment, they're in the same place. Now, because you had hormone treatments, you probably had the combination of both proton and photon. Yeah.
Yes.
And then did you have any kind of problems while you were undergoing treatment?
Some tiredness.
Now, let me ask you a question. Did he get tired before he ever came here? Yeah.
But not the same level.
Not the same level.
Well, actually, the
Fatigue
hormones.
is, the hormones will do that. And hormones, brings everything to stop. Did you get any hot flashes?
I haven't had them while I've been sitting here.
Well, that is marvelous, because when women hear about the possibility of men having heart flashes, they're sure that God has got a sense of humor. And as you know, as the longer you go, the more removed you are from the hormones, some of those symptoms end up going away and you'll quit experiencing them. But, some do experience for quite a while. Although I've talked to some men that went through it and never had any kind of a problem whatsoever. Now, I know that while you were here, you didn't just sit around and just show up for your treatment. You got very actively involved. In fact, you're involved in the BOW. Tell us a little bit about the BOW, Brotherhood of the Worshipers. What is that?
Bow wow.
Bow wow. What is that?
Brotherhood of Worshipers, Words of Wisdom. It's just a Bible study group for whoever wants to attend while they're here getting treatments.
Non-denominational, people from all different backgrounds coming together. And so what kind of things did you do there? I mean, did you just kind of come around and chew the fat, or did you study the Bible, or what happened?
Well, being a minister, I just happened to bring some materials along with me.
You happened to have some, just in case.
So when they knew I was a minister, they said, do you want to lead out in this Brotherhood of Worshipers? Said, be glad to. I brought out a Bible study on God.
Did you?
I had a Bible study where, with my concordance, there are 10,000 uses of the word God in the Bible. And I just had gone through and I picked out key passages about God, from Genesis all the way through the Gospel, all the way through to the end of the Bible. And then I've put those in printed form. And that's just a Bible study that I use in my ministry. And with this group, we just started at the beginning in Genesis. And took text after text and just looked at them and says, what is God? What is God like? And
so you kind
it's
of had
not a big group.
You had a Bible study. It's a small group, but did you get together and study together and pray together? And
9 o'clock every Thursday morning. My wife would get on the piano, and we would stand around the piano and sing a couple songs, and then we'd sit down and have prayer and open the Bible.
I think of Janet here having a music background and having a nurse background. What a perfect combination for a minister. And all through your ministry, it was a teen ministry working together. Well, now, tell me about this, getting cancer. How did this affect you?
Well, I wondered how long I was going to have my husband.
Sure, that's normal.
I started praying triple, 10 times.
Started playing triple, all right?
And I knew Proton was the best place here at Loma Linda.
So, what about the impact on the family? How many children do you have?
Two.
Two. And where are they located?
One is in Detroit.
One's in Detroit.
One's in Geneva, Switzerland.
Geneva, Switzerland. You don't just happen to go there by accident. Is that your daughter?
Yes.
Okay. And when was the last time you went over to Switzerland?
Well, the last time she came here was last summer, and the next time we go over there is next summer.
Wonderful. Okay. So the impact is on the family. Are they been pretty concerned about you out here?
Yes.
Yes.
And talking occasionally once in a while?
Thank God for Skype.
Yeah.
We're
so
on
you're-
Skype almost every week.
We
We're on
email every day.
email every day to talk to them.
Well, I want you to look into the camera here, and if there's people watching, some have had some kind of a back injury, some have been diagnosed with cancer, maybe prostate cancer or something else, what would you tell them? If somebody's had a back injury, what would you tell them? Look into the camera and just like
I
you're
would
speaking
tell
to them.
them, come to Loma Linda because they have special neurosurgeons that will take care of your problem and they'll help you to recover too.
All right? And somebody that's been diagnosed with cancer, maybe prostate cancer or maybe some other kind of a cancer, what would you look into the camera and just talk to the people there?
This is the best place you can ever come. The atmosphere is so friendly, so helpful. Everybody, from the janitors to the receptionists, everybody, they will call you by name every single time. They are concerned for you. And the atmosphere is positive.
Well, Loma Linda has an undergirding philosophy to make man whole, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. So when people come here, we tell them that treatments take place in the gantry or the fixed beam line, but healing is a process, much more than just showing up. We're interested in treating the whole person, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And there are people looking on that this very week they've discovered that you have just found some sobering news that you've got some kind of an illness or a disease. But I want to let you know that God's got a plan for your life, even as you've listened to Dwayne and Janet here, and they've moved on. This was rather than a stoppage. We're talking about people that are not only survivors, but people that are thrivers. They're moving on with their life, and they're going to be making a difference as they leave here and go back to their community. And for those of you that are looking on, let me just tell you right now that God's got a plan for your life. Look to Him. There's a premise in Ephesians that He is able. Give God a chance. He's waiting for you just now.